All right, we're here with Ben Sessions from Hanzell Vineyards, and we just came from the vineyards, and we're going to taste some wine. And one of the wines we'll taste is a wine that comes partially from the vineyard that we were just visiting a few minutes ago. But before we do the Pinot Noir, we, of course, have to taste some of your Chardonnays. And before we do that, I need to talk to you about something that actually I mentioned earlier to you, and I said, your Chardonnays last so long.
Mm-hmm. They do.
From your perspective, why is that? What is it about the winemaking here that allows those Chardonnays to age so well?
It's several things, but most importantly, perhaps, is really great acidity, not using a whole lot of malolactic fermentation, not a whole lot of barrel fermentation, although it does spend time in barrel. But it ultimately has to be the vineyard. It's the vineyard. My father, who's a winemaker here for 28 years, when asked that very same question, hemmed and hawed a little bit. And really, it's about getting good fruit from mature vines and not screwing it up once it gets here. But again, preserving the acidity, having that intensity of flavor. And we're going to taste three of the wines today, two different Chardonnays, actually, and we'll talk about those while we're doing that.
Sure. And in general, talk about your Chardonnay production here on the property.
Chardonnay production, the total Chardonnay production right now is about 3,500 cases. That's split between the Sabella Chardonnay, which is right here, which is about 1,400 cases, and the Hanzell Chardonnay, which is about 2,100 cases.
Okay. And the first wine we're tasting is the Sabella.
Yeah, Sabella is a combination of our owner's children's names, Sebastian and Isabella. All right. Just like Hanzell is Hannah and Zellerbach. And the Sabella is really a reflection of what the young vines are giving us right now. Made in a Chablis style, so it's all 100% tank fermented. Goes into neutral oak barrels, so barrels that have been used a couple of times for the Hanzell Chardonnay. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to be giving very much in the way of oak flavors. And it's in there for 8 months.
Now, when you say young, how young?
The Sabella Chardonnay is all vines that are 13 years old or younger.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, let's see what we have here. This is 2009.
2009. You should get a really big burst of green apple there. That's probably the first thing that jumps out of the glass. And as we taste, some citrus in there, along with a green apple, maybe Granny Smith and Pippin, and maybe a little Golden Delicious. Also, a little bit of lemon on the lingering palate, lemon on the finish, or a Meyer lemon, perhaps, would be a better way of describing that.
You know, the mouthfeel is pretty rich, considering how crisp the essential flavors are. Can you talk a little bit about the winemaking here and how you achieve that? Well, what do you attribute that to?
It all starts in the vineyard and how we farm. We farm very rigorously in the vineyard. Grand Cru style, which means that we care about every vine. We had met Jose Ramos a little bit earlier, and he's out there and he knows virtually every vine. And making sure that we farm, that we time things we do in the vineyard properly, and then making sure we have small crops so that what the intensity of the vine's energy goes into fewer berries, and those berries are going to give us wine that ultimately tastes better.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, what I found interesting about this wine is how rich it was in the palate with the crispness that it has. That green apple that you were talking about, a little bit of lemon as well. So this next one is your Hanzell Vineyard Chardonnay 2009.
Yes, yeah. Okay. This is let's taste this right now.
And actually, Ben, all your wines are estate?
All our wines are estate. We last purchased grapes in 1962. Since then, we've grown all of our grapes on the 5 different vineyard pieces that we have on the property.
Okay, all right.
And actually, you can probably see one behind us. This is the Ambassador's Vineyard right here. And these are the Old Vine Chardonnay right here. The Hanzell Chardonnay has the Old Vine Chardonnay, the Ambassador's Vineyard Chardonnay, which is 58 years old. It also has the Debris Vineyard, which we were in a little earlier,
right.
Chardonnay from the Debris Vineyard, which is 35 years old.
Right. And before, when we arrived, you were talking about your decanting ritual that you have here at Hanzell. Share that with us. That was kind of a funny story.
It's not a ritual. It might be too strong a word for it.
Okay.
We do it because it opens up the wines and makes them taste better.
Right.
And we decant all of our wines an hour and a half before serving them. Whether we're here at the winery doing it, which is quite convenient, or whether we're in New York at a tasting doing it, which is a little less convenient, but we're very rigorous about that.
And this includes the whites.
Whites as well, yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely. So the way that these wines are made, that decanting, especially for the whites, does allow more of the flavor to come out, I assume.
That, and also as you taste the wines, notice that the temperature of the wines is probably around 58 degrees right now, the temperature of the white wines. and that allows some of the flavors to emerge as well. White wine is all too often served too cold, and I know, some people do like that, but for our wines, they show best 55, 56, 57, 58 degrees.
Great. Okay, so let's see what we got here.
Yeah.
A little bit more complex in terms of the nose.
Where you'll see the biggest difference is probably through the mid palate. There still is that apple, probably more citrus, a little grapefruit, but there's this texture through the mid palate, and then it lingers on your palate, and the finish is really, really long.
That is a much more refined Chardonnay in terms of how rich it is.
It does have a little bit of malolactic fermentation, which will give it some of the richness, although none of that buttery characteristics.
No, not buttery at all.
Tiny creaminess, perhaps.
Right.
1/3 new barrels, 1/3 1-year-old barrels, 1/3 2-year-old barrels.
Okay. And I assume it's French?
All French. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Zellerbach was the first to import French oak barrels in any quantity into this country.
Right.
And his idea was, well, the greatest French wines that I drink all are from French oak barrels, so maybe I should do the same thing.
Right. Also, tell us a little bit about that room that we were just in a few minutes ago that had the stainless steel.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Mr. Zellerbach was the first to build jacketed stainless steel tanks. And so these tanks have a double wall so that we can run cooling liquid around the tank and cool the contents of the fermentation. And it gave winemakers a great degree of control over that, which they didn't have previously to that.
Right. And what is the total production in Hanzell nowadays?
Right now, about 5,000 cases, but that is because we're an estate winery. That is a really moving target. This year, 2011, we're down optimistically 40%. So by being a state, we don't buy grapes to fill in to make X amount of wine.
Right.
That is not our target. Our target is to make the best wine we can from the property here.
So Hanzell right now is only making about 5,000 cases?
Well, not this year, but most years, yes. Right? This year,
That's incredible.
We're going to make less.
I didn't realize. Okay, so you might even be less than 5,000.
Oh, yes, we will be. We don't know how much yet. We will know tomorrow.
Exactly.
And then we can all start crying in our beers.
Okay, great. So this will be the Pinot, some of which came from the vineyard that we were in, the Brie vineyard.
The Brie vineyard where we
Right.
did a little filming earlier. This is the Brie vineyard is 35 years old and planted a year after the Brie family purchased the winery, and it's really the engine of the property. It's going to come. Well, this Pinot Noir comes from there, and then it comes from this little narrow band right through here as well, which is the 58-year-old Pinot Noir vines.
Mm-hmm.
But
sure, absolutely. And this is 2008.
Yeah, and a little warmer, but not warm. This is maybe 62, 63 degrees. A lot of red fruit in there. Berry, dark plum. Some really great tannins. Again, we talk about texture and mouthfeel so much when we're putting together wines.
You know, I was just going to say about the tannins. They're under control, but this wine can actually age extremely well.
Yes, most of our Pinot Noirs are. We have not had a Pinot Noir that didn't last at least 20 years.
Right.
They're really, as a personal recommendation, and this is the wine we're drinking now, I really recommend 5-6 years from vintage to begin drinking them and sort of drink the taste. And if people have questions about when to drink their Hanzell Pinot or their Hanzell Chardonnay, I would encourage them to email or call the winery, and then we can say where we think the wine is at that moment and give them some advice, not orders, but advice on maybe how long they should decant it before they open it up.
Right.
Or before they drink it.
And if someone wants to visit the property, it is by appointment, correct?
By appointment only. We're only 5 minutes off Highway 12, but we are about 700 or 800 feet above sea level, just above the city of Sonoma. And our little road doesn't support a lot of traffic. Also, we'd like to spend more time with our guests, and we have that great luxury. More time with less people is how we talk about it. So we have the opportunity to drive each individual guest around the vineyard, take them through the caves, take them through the winemaking area, and then upstairs for a tasting where we spend time with the wines, 15, 20 minutes, as opposed to more of the wine bar approach or the shotgun approach that we find at most wineries. Mm-hmm. And not that there's anything wrong with that. We aspire to do something different.
Sure. Wonderful. Ben, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And enjoy. Thank you.